everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. We spend a lot of time on this show looking at some pretty complex topics, but today we're going back to basics. We're talking about something really fundamental to your health, and honestly, it might just be the key to living a longer, healthier life.
We are, and it's something that a lot of people have probably heard of, maybe even thrown around in gym conversations. It's VO2 max.
VO2 max, right. So for those who need a quick refresher, what exactly are we talking about when we say VO2 max?
Well, at its core, VO2 max is your body's ability to take in oxygen during exercise, transport that oxygen to your muscles, and then use it efficiently to fuel those muscles. It's basically a measure of how well your cardiovascular system, your heart, lungs, and blood vessels are working together.
Right, like the efficiency of your engine, so to speak. And we dug deep into a lot of research on this, and I have to say, one of the most compelling things that came up again and again was the link between VO2 max and lifespan.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just a correlation. It's one of the strongest modifiable predictors of how long you'll live. And that word modifiable, that's crucial here,
Yeah.
because we're not just stuck with whatever VO2 max we're born with. We can actually do something about it.
That's really empowering, isn't it? It means we have a real degree of control over this crucial aspect of our health. So today, we're going to do a full deep dive on VO2 max. We'll examine why it matters so much for longevity, look at why it's considered such a reliable measure of your overall fitness, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how you can actually improve it.
We'll also make sure we separate the facts from the hype, because there's a lot of information and sometimes misinformation out there.
Absolutely. No exaggeration, just the straight science and practical advice. Now, before we jump into the specifics of how to improve your VO2 max, let's talk about why it matters so much in the first place. We mentioned the link to lifespan, and there's a ton of research that really backs this up, right?
Right. And one of the most interesting studies we came across was published in JAMA, that's the Journal of the American Medical Association, back in 2018. It found that people with a high VO2 max had a significant survival advantage. They had a much lower risk of dying prematurely from any cause compared to those with low VO2 max.
And even more compelling, they found that the individuals with the absolute highest VO2 max, we're talking elite athletes here, had the lowest mortality risk. That's pretty powerful evidence that this isn't just some arbitrary number. It's deeply connected to how long and how well we live.
And it makes a lot of sense when you think about what VO2 max represents. It's not just about running fast or lifting heavy weights. It's a reflection of how efficient your entire body is at using oxygen. And oxygen is what fuels every single cell in your body.
Yeah.
So a high VO2 max means your cells are getting the oxygen they need to function optimally, to repair themselves, to fight off disease, everything.
So basically, it's like having a well-oiled machine. Everything's running smoothly and efficiently.
Exactly. And when your cells are functioning at their best, your whole body benefits, and that translates into a longer, healthier life. Now, another point our research highlighted was why VO2 max is such a reliable gauge of fitness. Unlike some other health markers that can fluctuate a lot, VO2 max is a pretty stable measure. It's not something you can fake or manipulate easily.
Right. It's not like you can just take a supplement and suddenly have a super high VO2 max. You actually have to put in the work, the consistent cardiovascular training over time to see real, lasting improvement.
Exactly. It's a reflection of your body's adaptation to sustained effort. So someone who's been sedentary for years isn't going to see a huge jump in their VO2 max after just a month of exercising. It takes time, consistency, and dedication to really make a difference.
Which is why it's such a good measure of long-term fitness, right? It's not a snapshot. It's more like a long-running record of how well you've been treating your cardiovascular system.
It is, and it's a powerful reminder that consistency really is key when it comes to building a strong, healthy body. But while VO2 max is a fantastic indicator of health and longevity, it's important to remember that it's not the only factor at play. And our research made it clear that there's another element that's just as crucial, and that's muscular strength.
Right. And I found this really fascinating because it's not just about being able to run a marathon or cycle for hours. Measures like grip strength, leg strength, and overall muscle mass also have a strong correlation with a longer lifespan.
And it makes a lot of sense. Having strong muscles helps you maintain your balance, avoid falls as you get older. It helps you perform everyday activities with ease, and it even supports your metabolic health. Plus, strong muscles actually work synergistically with your cardiovascular system.
So it's not just about cardio or strength training in isolation. They work together to create a truly healthy and resilient body.
They do, and the research really bears that out. When you combine a high VO2 max with good muscular strength, You're giving yourself the best possible chance of aging well and enjoying a long, active life. Now, of course, the natural question that arises is, what happens to our VO2 max as we get older? Is it inevitable that it will decline?
That's something I think we all want to know. What did our research say about that?
Well, the truth is VO2 max does tend to decline naturally with age. That's just a biological reality. But here's the good news. The rate at which it declines is very much influenced by our lifestyle. Our research suggests that for people who are mostly sedentary, VO2 max can decrease by as much as 8 to 10% per decade.
Wow, that's a pretty steep drop.
It is. But for people who are physically active, that rate of decline can be cut in half to around 5% per decade. And get this, for elite endurance athletes who continue training consistently, the decline might be as little as 3 to 4% per decade.
So it's not a foregone conclusion. There's a lot we can do to slow down that decline and maintain a healthy VO2 max well into our later years.
Exactly. It really emphasizes the importance of staying active throughout our lives. It's never too late to start reaping the benefits. And that brings us to what I think is the most exciting part of this deep dive. What can we actually do to improve our VO2 max? What are the practical strategies that really work?
All right, let's get into the actionable stuff. What did our research highlight as the most effective ways to boost our VO2 max?
Well, one of the most popular and effective methods is HIIT, which stands for High Intensity Interval Training. You've probably heard of it. It's become quite trendy in fitness circles, and for good reason. It's all about short bursts of intense exercise alternated with periods of rest or active recovery.
So it's not just about slogging away on the treadmill for an hour at the same pace.
Not necessarily. With HIIT, you're really pushing yourself to your limit for short periods, like 30 seconds to a minute, and then you recover for a similar amount of time and you repeat that cycle. And these short bursts of intensity really challenge your cardiovascular system and can lead to significant improvements in your VO2 max.
And what kinds of activities work well for HIIT?
Pretty much anything that gets your heart rate up quickly. Sprinting, of course, is a classic example. But you can also do HIAT on a bike, rowing machine, swimming, even just running up and down stairs.
So there's a lot of flexibility there. You can really tailor it to your own preferences and fitness level. Now, what about more traditional steady-state cardio, like going for a run or a bike ride at a moderate pace for a longer duration? Is that still beneficial for improving VO2 max?
Absolutely. Steady-state cardio is fantastic for building a strong aerobic base and improving your overall cardiovascular health. And while it might not produce the same rapid increases in VO2 max as HIIT, it's still incredibly valuable, especially when you're consistent with it.
Consistency is key, no matter what type of exercise you're doing. Now, we also touched on strength training earlier, and I'm curious to know how that fits into the picture of improving VO2 max.
All right, so strength training itself won't directly increase your VO2 max in the same way that cardio does. But what it does do is make your muscles more efficient. When your muscles use oxygen more efficiently, you can perform cardio exercise at a higher intensity and for longer periods, which ultimately can lead to an improvement in your VO2 max.
So it's all interconnected. Having strong muscles supports a stronger cardiovascular system and vice versa. And speaking of tracking progress, our research also highlighted the importance of actually measuring your VO2 max and monitoring it over time.
That's a really important point because it's not enough to just guess or assume you're improving. Having concrete data can be incredibly motivating. It can show you how far you've come, what's working, and what might need adjusting in your training.
And how can people actually measure their VO2 max?
There are a few ways. The gold standard is a lab test, usually done on a treadmill or stationary bike, where they measure your oxygen consumption as you exercise. But that can be a little bit pricey and not accessible to everyone. Luckily, there are other options. Many wearable fitness trackers now provide estimates of VO2 max, and while they're not as accurate as a lab test, they can still give you a good general idea of your fitness level and track your progress over time.
So there are definitely tools available to help you stay on top of your VO2 max and see those improvements as you work on it. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to reiterate a point that came up earlier. VO2 max is an incredibly important factor in our health and longevity, but it's not the only piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely. Longevity is a complex interplay of many factors. And our research highlighted things like metabolic health, meaning how well your body regulates blood sugar and insulin, your levels of inflammation, your unique genetic predispositions, and of course all those important lifestyle factors like stress management, diet, sleep, and even social connections.
And I also remember we talked about something called biological aging clocks. What are those exactly?
Yeah, biological aging clocks are basically tools that try to measure your body's true biological age, as opposed to your chronological age. They look at things like DNA methylation patterns, telomere length, and other biomarkers that can give insights into how quickly your body is aging at a cellular level. And while these clocks aren't perfect, they're becoming increasingly sophisticated, and they can offer some really valuable information about your overall health and risk for age-related diseases.
It's a good reminder that we need to take a holistic approach to our health, not just focus on one single factor in isolation.
Exactly. It's about creating a symphony of healthy habits, a combination of physical activity, good nutrition, stress management, and quality sleep, all working together to support a long and vibrant life.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on VO2 max, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to walk away with?
Well, I think the first is that VO2 max is more than just a fitness term. It's a really fundamental indicator of your overall health and longevity. And the second is that it's modifiable, meaning you have the power to improve it and reap the benefits. And lastly, while it's a crucial piece of the longevity puzzle, it's important to remember that it's not the only piece. It needs to be combined with other healthy habits for a truly well-rounded approach to aging well.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So for you, our listener, I want you to leave this episode with a question to ponder. What small change can you make today, whether it's adding a short HIIT workout to your week, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, or simply going for a brisk walk in nature to start building and maintaining a stronger, healthier cardiovascular system, and ultimately a longer, more vibrant life? It's something worth thinking about and something that's within your reach.